One day, Sol and Stein were in class. Stein had asked Sol to stay behind in class for his lazy behavior of not wanting to participate in the class. So as they're sitting around, Stein spinning lazily in his chair, Sol sleeping, a couple of people walk into the room. Sol wakes up and looks over and asks, "Who are you guys?" So Micah walks over and says, "Oh, I'm Micah." Sol looks at him and says, "Why do you sound like me?" And Stein stares over and is like, interesting. So everyone stares at each other for a couple minutes, and an awkward silence comes in.
Switch.
Sol takes a look at Micah again, and his brain starts thinking, which is a random thing ever. And he thinks for a few minutes. He goes, "Wait a minute." He gets up, goes to Micah, and says something that would probably shock anybody. "You're taller than me." Micah says, "Yeah, so? Why are you taller than me?" Micah says, "Is there a problem with me being taller?" Well, he goes, "Well, yeah. If you sound like me, you need to be my same height."
Switch.
So Micah was saying, "Oh, okay. Maybe I could be just taller and you could be in height with me instead of shorter." And so I was like, "What's that supposed to mean? You know, short people are better, good too." And Micah said, "No, it's always better. You can reach for you know what? Short people can do a lot more things quicker and faster." And Micah was like, "No, that's time to stop right there."
Switch.
Meanwhile, in the same area, Professor Stein meets up with Chuck Huber. Chuck Huber says hi to Professor Stein, and then Professor Stein starts a fascinating conversation by telling them that Professor Stein really enjoyed Chuck Huber's performance as Shao Tucker from Fullmetal Alchemist. He then comments that he finds Shao Tucker a fascinating character because he experimented on his wife and daughter. And then he said, "Oh, Chuck Huber, I really liked it when you voiced Tucker by experimenting on your wife and daughter."
Switch.
So as Dr. Stein raves about Chuck and his work, he has a thought. If he could sound like him, and sound like him, he has an idea. As he then lazily takes a smoke, he stares at Chuck and says, "I wonder if I can do an experiment on you." Chuck looks at him and kind of just takes a step back and says, "Nah, I'm not really up for that."
Switch.
So Chuck does the only thing that anyone would do in a situation when you see Dr. Stein taking a smoke and saying to you, "I wonder if I can experiment on you." And what is that thing he does? He turns and he runs. Runs like the devil on his heels, wanting to find an exit. And what does Stein do? He waits a few minutes, takes another drag on his cigarette, puts the cigarette out, and then he starts walking slowly where Chuck Huber's footprints were. Then he walks a little faster and a little faster and a little faster, but suddenly he starts running, chasing after Chuck like a dog on a scent, yelling, "Get back here!" Chuck saying, "No way!"
Switch.
Well, Chuck Huber started thinking, "Wait a minute, how can you run? He's a stroller. So how can he walk?" Like that. And then he thought, "Okay, I'm going to change my voice to sing to a little girl." So now Chuck Huber's voice acting is good too. Voice acting for Stein. And Stein saying, thinking, "Oh, this is interesting." He's spinning his little head again. Stein wondering, and Chuck Huber's laughing his mouth and
Switch.
Stein then asks Chuck if he could experiment on his daughter and his dog, if he ever has one. And Chuck said, hell no. Meanwhile, Sol is still talking to Micah, and he actually realizes that Micah is actually kind of a cool guy. And then Sol tells Micah that, hey, you really sound like a pretty cool guy. You know, I really like your voice. Keep up the good work. Stay cool, dude. I wonder who else you're going to voice in future roles. And then Death appears to stop Stein from having a psychotic breakdown by constantly trying to ask Chuck if he can experiment on something of his.
Switch.
So Stein laughs maniacally as he's trying to catch up to Chuck. Shinigami-sama jumps up in front, or appears in front of Stein, and his happy-go-lucky voice says, hold on, Stein. You can't do that. He's an innocent man. Dr. Stein laughed and said all the more reasons to experiment. So, while Shinigami-sama struggled to keep Stein from losing any more of his sanity, Chuck watched from afar as Dr. Stein and Shinigami-sama
Switch.
Chuck decides to hide in a nearby room, but the room he decided to hide in was the room Sol and Micah were in. So he goes in there, looking like he just went through a marathon. He's like, I'm hiding here. I'm going into a closet. No one tell I'm here. So he goes to the nearest closet, which is the supply closet, hides in there. And Sol and Micah were like, huh? And then Stein goes into the room. He's like, you seen a guy looking like this tall, got short hair, or so. He sounds like me. Sol and Micah were like, nope, I haven't seen him. Nope. So Stein's like, oh, okay, I'll just take a look. So he looks around, he doesn't find anybody, so then he leaves the room, and Sol and Micah were like, oh, what was that all about? And then Chuck Huber opens the door of the closet a little bit, he's like, is he gone? Yeah, he's gone. Okay, that guy's been chasing me for about 20 minutes.
Switch.
After all that, a man wearing a black suit with red hair appears, and it happens to be Deathside. He looks for Professor Stein because he has a feeling that Professor Stein is becoming a bit obnoxious at Aki Con. He then looks around the place and then says, this is my first time coming to Aki Con. Well, I guess this is nice. I'm actually awaiting late March for SakuraCon because I'll get to meet the voice of Deathside, Beck Mignonnes. And apparently Deathside has no idea what to do in the convention because this is his first time being there.
Switch.
So while Deathside is wandering around, Chuck wanders in walks by Sol and Micah. He looks around and he sees Deathside. He says, oh, hey, what's up? Deathside stares at Chuck and says, are you Stein? You don't look like him, you sound like him. And immediately, Deathside, being crazy about his daughter, immediately brings up, you didn't hurt Micah, did you? And he starts flailing around, going on and on about Micah. He grabs Chuck and says, if you hurt her, I swear. Sol just looks at him like he was crazy, which he was. And they continue to argue.
Switch. Give it a good ending.
So Chuck decides to stop the argument by taking a nearby table hitter thingy and whacks Deathside on the head with it, knocking him out. There, at least that solves that problem. And while Soul just stands there looking like, what the heck just happened? Micah and Chucky would decide, let's get out of here before more stuff happens. So they do. They quietly leave the building and go find a nice coffee stand to have some coffee, wondering why do all these crazy things happen to them on a day they don't want it to be crazy.